Useless, she whispered, in flawless Japanese. Her diamond ring caught the candlelight as her lips curved with quiet disgust. People like you should be cleaning floors, not serving me. Around them, the clink of crystal and soft jazz filled the air inside Manhattan's most exclusive restaurant. But when the waiter lifted his eyes, everything changed. Marcus Hall, young, black, a single father with exhaustion etched beneath his eyes, looked straight at her. And in perfect Japanese, his calm voice cut through the room. I understood every word you just said. The billionaire froze. Her power cracked in silence. Because in that moment, the man she thought was invisible became the mirror she couldn't escape. What happened next would turn a dinner service into a reckoning about dignity, class, and the cost of respect. If this story moved you even a little, hit subscribe to Canada's Heartfelt Tales and stay till the end. Some truths deserve to be witnessed. The dining room fell utterly still. A single droplet of water slid down Reina Takahashi's sleeve, glistening against the black silk like an accusation. The air tightened, every sound collapsing into silence except the slow beat of Marcus's heart. For 4 years, he had lived invisible inside rooms like this. His smile polite, his voice measured, his spirit quietly surviving beneath the weight of others' arrogance. But this was different. She had mentioned his daughter, and that he could not allow. Reina's cold eyes flicked toward him, disbelief flickering for just a second before it hardened into disdain. Excuse me, she said, voice sharp enough to cut through crystal. The men at her table paused mid-sentence, sensing the tension but unsure of its cause. Marcus didn't flinch. His voice came calm, deliberate, fluent. You said I was useless, he replied, in perfect Japanese. That I should be cleaning floors, not serving you. I understood every word. A tremor passed through the table. The assistant's tablet froze in her hands. One of the lawyers nearly choked on his drink. Reina's jaw tensed, her polished mask cracking just enough for the truth to show. For the first time in years, someone had spoken to her in a tone that didn't bend. The manager, Gerald, hovered near the doorway, his face pale as linen. He had seen enough disasters in this restaurant to know one was unfolding right now. But Marcus didn't back down. He stood with the stillness of a man who had nothing left to lose. Reina leaned forward, lowering her voice to a hiss. Do you have any idea who I am? Yes, Marcus said quietly. And do you have any idea who I am? Her brow furrowed. You're a waiter. He met her gaze evenly. I'm a father, a linguist, and a man who refuses to be spoken to like trash. The entire table had gone silent now. The city lights beyond the window painted reflections across Reina's face, slicing her features into fragments. Power, pride, and something darker. The memory of who she once was. Gerald appeared beside Marcus, whispering harshly. Enough. Apologize now. I'll smooth it over. Just apologize. Marcus's voice never rose. I've apologized my entire life, Gerald. I think I'm done. The manager's face twisted in panic. You'll lose your job. Then at least I'll lose it standing up. That sentence hung in the air like a verdict. Reina blinked, stunned by the audacity, by the calm confidence she couldn't break. He turned, bowed politely, not submissively, and walked out of the private room. Every step echoed against marble floors, each one heavier than the last but freer than anything he'd felt in years. When the door closed, no one spoke for several long seconds. Then one of the investors muttered. He speaks better Japanese than half our Tokyo branch. Reina didn't reply. Her mind had already drifted backward, years, maybe decades, to a restaurant in Osaka, a spilled glass, and a man who'd once told her the same words she had just hurled at someone else. Outside, Marcus stood in the alley behind the restaurant, his breath visible in the chill air. His hands trembled, not from fear but release. For the first time he wasn't ashamed. He was terrified of what tomorrow would bring, but for tonight he felt alive. The following morning the phone calls began. Gerald left 2 frantic voicemails warning him that Takahashi might blacklist him from every fine dining job in the city. By noon, Marcus's access card was deactivated. He spent the day pacing his small apartment, watching Lily color at the kitchen table, pretending everything was fine. "Daddy, did the mean lady say sorry?" she asked innocently. He smiled faintly. "Not yet, baby. But she will." That night, as she slept, he sat alone with the unpaid bills spread like battle plans before him. The fluorescent bulb buzzed overhead, harsh and unforgiving. He whispered to the empty room, "You did the right thing," though part of him wasn't sure. Across Manhattan, Reina Takahashi couldn't sleep either. The words "my dignity is not for sale" kept looping in her head. Her reflection in the glass seemed to stare back, accusing. For the first time in decades, she recognized the hunger in her own eyes, the same hunger she once swore would never corrupt her. By sunrise, she made a decision that shocked even herself. When Marcus opened his door the next morning, a woman in a tailored gray suit stood waiting. "Mr. Hall," she said. "Ms. Takahashi requests your presence at her headquarters. Tinium. A car will arrive at 9:30. He stared at the envelope in disbelief. "You're joking." "No, sir." She was insistent. At exactly 9:30, a sleek black sedan idled in front of his building. Mrs. Patterson watched from the window, whispering, "You be careful, honey." The drive into Manhattan felt endless. The skyscrapers loomed like silent judges, their mirrored faces reflecting a world he'd never belonged to. When the car stopped before Takahashi Industries, a glass tower rising into the clouds, Marcus took a slow breath and stepped out. Inside, the marble floors gleamed. Receptionists greeted him by name, their politeness rehearsed but curious. The elevator ascended silently, each floor number flashing like a heartbeat. On the 50th floor, he found Reina waiting, not in her armor of power, but in a simple blouse and loose hair that softened her severity. "Mr. Hall," she began, her voice quieter than before. "Thank you for coming." He stayed near the doorway. "Your note said this wasn't revenge. So what is it?" Reina gestured toward the window overlooking the city. "Last night, I remembered something I'd spent 20 years trying to forget." She told him about Osaka, about the man who'd humiliated her when she was a teenager. "I built everything I have to make sure no one could ever treat me like that again. And yet, somehow, I became him." Her confession fell heavy between them. Marcus didn't interrupt. "I can't undo what I said," she continued. "But I can do something else." She slid a folder across her desk. "A job offer. Director of International Language Coordination. Salary. $120,000 a year. Full benefits. Flexible hours. You're fluent in 4 languages, and I need someone who speaks truth more than flattery." Marcus stared at the document, stunned. "You want to hire me?" "I want to learn from you," she said simply. He hesitated, the weight of everything he'd endured pressing down. "If I accept, it's under 3 conditions," he said finally. "You treat every employee with respect. Always. I leave work by 3 to pick up my daughter. And you create a scholarship for kids like me. Kids who love languages but can't afford education." Reina blinked, clearly taken aback. "That would require board approval. Months of paperwork. Then we don't have a deal." He turned to leave. "Wait," she said quickly. "I can't promise it tomorrow. But I can promise to fight for it. Personally." Marcus studied her face for a long time. This wasn't the woman from the restaurant. There was humility now and remorse. He nodded slowly. "Then we'll try." They shook hands. Her grip trembled slightly. Days became months. The scholarship proposal met resistance. Executives mocked it as charity nonsense. Reina fought through 7 board meetings, pushing, negotiating, refusing to drop it. Marcus worked beside her, building translation teams, bridging continents. Home, Lily thrived. Every morning they practiced Japanese. Every night they shared dinner, laughing about her new words. "Daddy," she said one evening, Do rich people ever say sorry? He smiled. Sometimes the good ones learn how. Nearly a year later, Raina stood at a podium in a glittering ballroom. Behind her, a banner read the Marcus Hall Scholarship Foundation. 30 children sat in the front row, their families wiping tears as their names were called. Raina's voice wavered only once, when she said his name. Marcus sat near the stage, Lily's small hand wrapped around his. They named it after you, Daddy, she whispered. I know, sweetheart, he said softly. But it's really for you. Cameras flashed. Reporters scribbled. And somewhere among the applause, Marcus caught Raina's gaze. She gave a small nod, not of superiority, but of gratitude. After the ceremony, she approached him quietly. You changed more than my company, she said. You changed me. Marcus looked around the room filled with children who might one day speak the same languages he once studied in borrowed books. No, he replied gently. You changed yourself. You just needed someone to remind you why. Outside, the night air was cool and alive with city noise. Lily tugged at his sleeve. Can we get ice cream now? He laughed. Let's go, Professor. They walked hand in hand down Fifth Avenue, past towers of glass and steel, past people who might never know their story, but who lived in a world slightly kinder because of it. Behind them, the massive Takahashi Industries sign gleamed, its lights flickering for a second before steadying again, like the heartbeat of a company reborn. Yet the true justice wasn't in headlines or applause. It came weeks later when the board of directors discovered internal memos Raina had quietly leaked, emails exposing executives who'd covered up labor violations in their overseas factories. Their downfall was swift and public. Her old rivals, the same men who once sneered at her empathy, were forced to resign. The story broke across financial news as the Takahashi Purge. When journalists asked her why she did it, she simply said, because integrity isn't negotiable. And somewhere in Brooklyn, Marcus turned off the television, smiled to himself and whispered, Good. He looked toward Lily's room, where she was humming softly in Japanese as she drew pictures of mountains and cherry blossoms. The sound of her laughter filled the apartment, gentle, pure, and endless. For the first time in years, Marcus Hall felt peace not as an escape, but as something he had earned. He had stood up once in a restaurant full of people who thought power gave them the right to humiliate others, and from that single moment everything changed. Raina Takahashi's empire would recover financially, but her reputation would never again rest on fear. She became known for something far rarer in her world, humility. And Marcus, he became known for something greater than fluency. He became the man who reminded New York that dignity speaks every language. The city had changed, but Marcus no longer measured it by its skyline. He measured it by the silence between insults, by how people now listened before they spoke. Every morning as the sun brushed over Brooklyn's rooftops, he walked Lily to school, no longer rushing, no longer carrying the weight of survival. She would wave and say, Bye, Daddy, in fluent Japanese, her voice bright and proud. Sometimes, his mind drifted back to that night at Lumiere, the spilled water, the look in Raina's eyes, the moment when fear gave way to truth. He had thought standing up might destroy him, but instead it had built something stronger, a life grounded in respect, not approval. And for Raina, power had found its conscience. She still sat in corner offices and signed billion-dollar deals, but now her meetings began with a single rule. Listen first. The world hadn't become perfect, but two lives had, in their own small way, rewritten what power meant. Marcus understood now that courage isn't loud, it's steady. It's the quiet decision to speak when silence feels safer. Outside his window, the city hummed, alive and imperfect. He smiled, knowing that sometimes, one honest voice is enough to start a change no one saw coming. If this story moved you, don't just close it, share it. Like, comment, and subscribe to Canada's Heartfelt Tales, where every story reminds us that truth, dignity, and kindness never lose their language.